What do you do when a lie travels faster than the truth? Do you chase it down, shouting and screaming, trying to prove your innocence? Or do you stand still, let the lie run itself ragged, and wait for the perfect moment to simply and quietly trip it at the full height of its sprint? My sister Chloe, she's a sprinter, a world-class marathon runner when it comes to crafting a public narrative. She believes that whoever shouts the loudest and cries the hardest wins the hearts and minds of the crowd. She's not wrong most of the time, but this time she was betting against the wrong brother. This time she wasn't just lying, she was attacking the one thing I had sworn to protect with every fiber of my being, and she made one fatal mistake. She assumed I would fight her on her terms, a messy, emotional, he said, she said battle in the mud of social media. She thought I would get angry. She never imagined I would get quiet. She never imagined that my silence wasn't weakness. It was a strategy. It was the calm before I brought the entire temple of her lies crashing down around her with the weight of a single, undeniable fact. If you've ever been the villain in someone else's story, if you've ever been painted into a corner by a manipulator who knows just how to pull the public's heartstrings, then you know the fire I was walking through. Stick around because I'm going to tell you exactly how I walked out the other side, without so much as the smell of smoke on my clothes, and how I used the truth, not as a shield, but as a weapon. It all started as these things so often do with money. Not a lot of money, not to me anyway, but to my sister Chloe. It was the lifeblood of her latest doomed venture. She called it Chloe's Closet, a high-end boutique in the trendiest part of our town, a part of town that had more boutiques than it had paying customers. From the moment she signed the lease, I knew it was a black hole for cash. I'm an accountant, a forensic accountant to be precise. My job, my entire professional life, is to look at numbers and see the story they're telling. Chloe's numbers were telling a horror story. She came to me on a Tuesday. I remember because I was in the middle of reconciling the accounts for our mother's care, a task I performed with religious precision every week. My phone buzzed, and Chloe's name flashed on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. I knew what she wanted. 2 minutes later, a text appeared. Alex, please pick up. It's an emergency. Against my better judgment, I called her back. I could hear the fake panic in her voice before she even got the words out. Alex, oh my God, you will not believe what happened. The supplier for my new line of Italian silk scarves, they sent the wrong shipment, and now they're demanding payment upfront for the correct one. And if I don't pay them by Friday, I'll miss the entire spring season. I'm ruined. I took a deep breath, the scent of old paper and printer ink filling my small home office. This was the fifth emergency in 6 months. The first was for rent. The second was to pay her one employee. The third was for a marketing campaign that involved giving free champagne to influencers who never showed up. The fourth I couldn't even remember. They blurred together into a continuous whine of financial irresponsibility. Chloe, I said, my voice flat. How much? Just 5,000, she said, the words rushing out. It's just a loan, Alex, I swear. The moment the new line sells, I'll pay you back with interest. You know I'm good for it. I didn't say anything. I just swiveled in my chair and looked at the spreadsheet on my screen. It wasn't my work. It was Mom's account. Every pension deposit, every social security payment, every single expense itemized down to the penny. The line item for her 24-hour nursing care glowed on the screen. It was a massive number, a number that ate up every cent of her income and then some. The then some came from a separate account. My account? Alex, are you there? Did you hear me? I heard you, Chloe, I said. The answer is no. The line went silent for a moment. The fake panic was gone, replaced by a cold, sharp edge. No? What do you mean no? It's $5,000, Alex. I know you have it. You're always hoarding your money like some kind of dragon. It's not about having it, Chloe. It's about not throwing it into a bonfire. Your boutique is failing. It's been failing since day one. Another loan isn't a lifeline. It's just postponing the inevitable. My tone was matter of fact. This was a conversation I'd had in my head 100 times. I was a professional at delivering bad financial news. I just never thought I'd have to do it so often with my own sister. Her voice dropped, turning venomous. You have no idea what it takes to run a business. You just sit in your little room with your little numbers all day. Some of us have dreams, Alexander. Some of us are trying to build something. You're building a mountain of debt, I countered, still calm. I'm not contributing to it anymore. The bank of Alex is closed. There was a pause, and then she deployed the weapon she always used when she was losing an argument. The one she'd been perfecting since we were children. She made it about family. Fine, she hissed. I see how it is. You don't care about me. You probably don't even care about mom. You just like controlling her money. Don't you? It makes you feel powerful. The accusation was so absurd, so far from the truth, that I almost laughed. But I knew this was just her parting shot. The conversation is over, Chloe. Oh, it's far from over, she whispered. And then she hung up. I put my phone down and stared at the screen, at the rows and columns of numbers that represented the quiet, unglamorous, and expensive reality of caring for an elderly parent with advanced dementia. It was a world away from Italian silk scarves and champagne parties. I felt a familiar weariness settle over me. I had done the right thing, the responsible thing, but I had a cold knot in my stomach. Chloe was a cornered animal, and I knew she was about to lash out. I just didn't realize how publicly and how viciously she was planning to do it. 2 days passed in silence. I half expected her to show up at my door, ready for a tearful apology that would inevitably lead to another request for money. But there was nothing. I went about my routine. Work, check on mom, via the webcam I had set up in her room, speak with her daytime nurse, Sarah, and then her night nurse, Maria. It was a quiet, orderly life, built around a single, non-negotiable priority: our mother's well-being. The quiet, however, was just the eye of the storm. The first indication that something was wrong came on Friday afternoon. It was an email from my Aunt Carol, Chloe's and my mother's sister. The subject line was just one word: shame. The body of the email was short and brutal. I cannot believe what I'm reading. Your mother would be heartbroken to know how you're treating her. After everything she did for you, to steal from her in her old age, it's monstrous. Chloe is beside herself with worry. I stared at the words, utterly bewildered. Steal from her? What was she talking about? Before I could even formulate a reply, my phone started buzzing. A text from a cousin, then another from an old family friend. They were all variations on the same theme: shock, disgust, and condemnation. It was like a switch had been flipped, and suddenly I was a pariah. My hands felt cold as I navigated to our community's Facebook page, a place I usually avoided. It was typically a mix of lost dog posts, complaints about garbage collection, and announcements for the annual town bake sale. But today the top post, the one with hundreds of reactions and comments, was from my sister. It was a picture of her. She was sitting in her boutique, surrounded by racks of clothes, but her face was the focus. Her eyes were red-rimmed, and filled with what looked like genuine tears. Her makeup was artfully smudged. She looked beautiful and broken. And then there was the text. It was a masterpiece of manipulation, a symphony of victimhood. She didn't name me at first. She started by talking about the struggles of caring for an aging parent, the emotional toll, the financial burden. She painted a picture of a devoted daughter, fighting every day to keep her small business afloat while also worrying about her beloved mother. Then she brought the hammer down. But some people, she wrote, see this vulnerability not as a reason to help, but as an opportunity to exploit. I've recently discovered that my own brother, who holds the power of attorney for my mother, has been systematically draining her accounts. He claims it's for her care, but I've been stonewalled at every turn. He refuses to show me a single receipt. When I confronted him, he cut me off. He is using our mother's life savings to subsidize his own life while she withers away, neglected and alone. I'm scared for her, and I feel so helpless. I've always been a private person, but I can't stay silent while my mother is being financially abused. Please keep her in your prayers. I read it once and then twice. My blood ran cold. It wasn't just a lie. It was a perfectly constructed narrative. It had everything: a damsel in distress, Chloe, a vulnerable old woman, our mother, and a cold, calculating villain, me. She had even preemptively explained why she had no proof: because the evil villain was stonewalling her. It was airtight. The comments section was a tidal wave of sympathy for Chloe and pure venom for me. That's horrifying, Chloe. Your brother should be in jail, from a woman who owned the bakery down the street. I'm so sorry you're going through this. We're all here for you, from a high school acquaintance. This is Alexander, right? The quiet one? It's always the quiet ones. Disgusting, from a man I vaguely knew from the gym. My name was being dragged through the digital mud, attached to accusations of elder abuse. My first instinct was rage. A white-hot, furious impulse to charge into that comment section and fight back. To type in all caps, to call her a liar, a fraud, a failed shop owner trying to extort money. I wanted to defend myself, to tear her story apart piece by piece. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, my heart pounding in my chest. I felt like a cornered animal, and my instinct was to bite. But then another feeling washed over me, pushing the anger aside. It was a cold, quiet clarity. This was what she wanted. A messy public fight, a spectacle. It would be her tearful, emotional words against my angry, defensive ones. In the court of public opinion, a hysterical victim will always beat an angry defendant. She had set a trap, and my rage was the bait. And in that moment, something inside me shifted. The hurt and the anger didn't vanish, but they receded, cooling and hardening into something else. Resolve. It felt like a lock clicking into place. I wasn't going to play her game. I was going to play mine. My game wasn't about shouting matches or emotional appeals. My game was about numbers, documents, and irrefutable proof. She had built her narrative out of tears and whispers. I was going to demolish it with cold, hard facts. I closed the laptop. I leaned back in my chair, the cacophony of the online mob fading into the background. I wasn't going to engage. Not yet. I was going to wait. I was going to let the outrage build. I was going to let her and her supporters scream themselves hoarse. And at the very peak of their righteous fury, when everyone was watching, I would make my move. One move. The only one I needed. The following 48 hours were some of the longest of my life. My phone became a toxic brick, buzzing incessantly with notifications of new comments, angry texts, and missed calls from relatives I hadn't spoken to in years, all of them demanding an explanation. I put it on silent and shoved it in a drawer. Going out was impossible. I tried to go for my usual morning run, but I saw Mrs. Gable from 2 houses down practically dive behind her hedges to avoid me. Later, when I went to get groceries, I saw people whispering and pointing as I walked down the aisle. I felt like I was wearing a scarlet letter, one stitched together by Chloe's lies. The isolation was suffocating. Every instinct screamed at me to fight, to clear my name, but my resolve held. This wasn't a battle of emotion. This was a war of information, and I was the only one with the complete arsenal. To understand why I was so certain, you have to understand my relationship with my mother and with Chloe. Chloe was always the sun. She was bright, dazzling, and everything revolved around her. I was the moon, quiet, steady, and mostly visible only when she wasn't around. From childhood, she had a gift for spinning tales, for turning a broken vase into a dramatic story of a phantom burglar that had our parents both terrified and impressed. I was the one who quietly cleaned up the pieces. She was the one who got the ice cream for being so brave. That dynamic never really changed. She pursued her passions, a litany of short-lived careers as a painter, a yoga instructor, a jewelry maker, and now a boutique owner. I pursued a stable career in a field she called aggressively boring. I became a forensic accountant. I track, I verify, I document. My world is one of black and white, of ledgers and receipts. It's a world where a narrative means nothing without the data to back it up. Our mother, before she got sick, understood both of us. She loved Chloe's sparkle, but she relied on my steadiness. 5 years ago, when her memory started to slip, the roles became more defined. Chloe would visit with flowers and stories, cheering mom up for an hour before disappearing back to her exciting life. I was the one who took her to doctor's appointments. I was the one who researched dementia care. I was the one who sat with her for hours, as she grew more confused and frightened. The conversation about the power of attorney was one of the hardest we ever had. We sat at her kitchen table, the same table where I'd done my homework as a child. Her hands trembled as she held her teacup. "Alex," she'd said, her voice thin but clear, "I'm scared. I'm forgetting things. Important things." She looked at me, her eyes lucid in that moment, with a terrifying self-awareness. "I don't want Chloe to have to worry about the money. She has so much on her plate. And she's not good with it, honey. You are. I trust you. I want you to be in charge. I know you'll always do the right thing for me." It wasn't a slight against Chloe. It was a simple statement of fact. My mother knew her children. So we went to a lawyer, a man named Mr. Harrison, a dry, no-nonsense professional who had handled our family's affairs for decades. The three of us sat in his stuffy office, and Mom signed the documents. She was of sound mind, and Mr. Harrison made sure every I was dotted and every I was crossed. He made 2 certified copies, one for his files, one for me. I put it in my home safe and didn't think much about it until now. When Mom's condition worsened to the point she could no longer live alone, the real financial burden began. Chloe's contribution to the discussion was to suggest we put her in a state-run facility. "They're not that bad," she'd argued over the phone. "And it would be so much cheaper. We could sell the house and split the money." I remember feeling a cold fury then, too. "No," I had said, my voice dangerously quiet. "She's not going to a facility. She's going to stay in her own home, where she's comfortable, where she feels safe. It's the last thing we can do for her." "And how do you plan to pay for that, Mr. Moneybags?" She'd sneered. "24-hour care costs a fortune." "I'll handle it," I'd said, and I did. Now sitting in my silent house, I pulled out the file. It wasn't just one file, it was a banker's box. For 3 years, I had managed every aspect of my mother's finances. I had a separate checking account set up just for her expenses. Her pension and Social Security were deposited directly into it. I had negotiated a contract with a licensed, bonded, and highly reputable geriatric care agency, Senior Solutions. I had every invoice they had ever sent me, every single one. The catalyst that pushed me from passive waiting to active preparation was a phone call from my Uncle Ben, my father's brother. He was a good man, but a man who believed in family unity above all else, which often meant smoothing things over and accepting the version of the story that caused the least friction. "Alex, son," he started, his voice heavy with disappointment. "We need to talk about this situation. Chloe posted another update. She said you threatened her." I closed my eyes. Of course she had. She was escalating. "I did no such thing, Uncle Ben." "Well, that's her side of it. Look, this is tearing the family apart. Whatever is going on, you need to make it right. You're the one with the power here, the one with the checkbook. Maybe you should just show her the books, give her some reassurance, or maybe give her the loan she needs. It would go a long way to mending fences." That's when I knew. Mending fences wasn't possible. The fence wasn't broken. Chloe had burned it to the ground and salted the earth. My family wasn't looking for the truth. They were looking for the path of least resistance. They wanted the noise to stop, and if that meant placating Chloe and throwing me under the bus, so be it. "Thank you for your call, Uncle Ben," I said, my voice devoid of any emotion. "I'll handle it." I hung up before he could reply. That was the moment my resolve became a plan. A cold, meticulous, step-by-step plan. This wasn't about convincing my uncle or my aunt. This was about a public execution of a lie. I wasn't going to show Chloe the books. I was going to show the entire world, but not all of them. Just one perfect, devastating page. I spent the next several hours in my office, not in a frantic rage, but in a state of hyper-focused calm. It was the same mental space I entered when I was deep into a complex audit, hunting for a single fraudulent transaction buried in a mountain of data. The noise from the outside world faded away. There was only the task at hand. My plan wasn't born of anger, but of a deep understanding of my sister's character and the nature of the arena she had chosen. The community Facebook page was a theater, and she was the star of a melodrama. A complex emotional rebuttal would just be another act in her play. It would be my word against her tears, and tears almost always win. I needed something that couldn't be argued with, something that wasn't open to interpretation. I needed a document, a fact, something cold, black and white. My secret weapon, the one Chloe never knew I had, wasn't some hidden fortune or a secret skill in hand-to-hand combat. It was my obsessive, aggressively boring nature. It was my profession. As a forensic accountant, I don't just keep records. I curate them. I document, cross-reference, and build unassailable financial narratives. For the past 3 years, I had been building the story of my mother's care without even realizing it would one day become my defense. First, I went to my safe. I pulled out the original durable power of attorney document, the one my mother had signed in Mr. Harrison's office. The paper was crisp, the signatures clear. Mr. Harrison's official stamp was embossed at the bottom. It was legally ironclad. This was the foundation. It established my legal authority, countering Chloe's insinuation that I had somehow usurped control. I placed it on my high-resolution scanner. I scanned it, creating a perfect, crystal-clear digital copy. Next, I opened the banker's box labeled Mom's Care. It was a thing of beauty, if you're my kind of person. 3 years of files organized by month. Each month had a folder containing the bank statement for Mom's account, and tucked behind it, every single corresponding invoice and receipt. I could trace every penny that had ever come in or gone out. I knew I couldn't post all of this. It would be overwhelming, confusing. It would look defensive. The key to this operation was not a flood of information, but a single surgical strike. I needed one document that told the entire story in a way no one could misinterpret. I pulled the file for the most recent month. Inside was the invoice from Senior Solutions, the geriatric care agency. I unfolded it. It was a simple one-page document, but it was devastatingly effective. It was itemized. Line 124/7. In-home skilled nursing care. The cost was staggering. Over $8,000 for the month. Line 2. Medical supplies. Line 3. Specialized dietary needs. The total at the bottom was a number that would make most people gasp. I then pulled up the corresponding bank statement for Mom's account. I highlighted her combined pension and Social Security deposits for the month. The total was a little over $3,000. It was a decent amount, but it was a fraction of the cost of her care. The statement showed the automatic payment to Senior Solutions, which drained the account completely. And then it showed something else. A large deposit at the beginning of the month. The description was simple. Account transfer. The transfer was from my personal savings account. It was for $5,500. It was the difference. The supplement. The hefty chunk of my own money I put in every single month, without fail, to ensure my mother had the best care possible, in the comfort of her own home. This was it. This was the hidden leverage. Not just that I was paying for her care, but that I was doing so at a significant personal cost. Chloe was accusing me of stealing from Mom, while in reality I was subsidizing her life to the tune of over $60,000 a year. The irony was so bitter it almost tasted sweet. I didn't stop there. My plan required an ally, not for emotional support, but for professional validation. I called Susan, the director of Senior Solutions. Susan was a formidable woman in her late 60s, a former ER nurse who ran her agency with military precision and deep compassion. We had spoken many times over the years. "Susan, it's Alexander Pierce," I said. "Alex, hello. Is everything all right with your mother?" Maria said she had a good night. "Everything is fine with Mom, thank you. I'm calling about a personal matter. My sister has made some public accusations regarding my mother's finances and her care." I explained the situation calmly and factually, without a hint of the drama Chloe had created. There was a moment of silence on the line, and then Susan let out a sigh. "I see. I'm very sorry to hear that, Alex. For what it's worth, in my 20 years of running this agency, I have rarely seen a child as devoted and meticulous as you. Your mother's care is our top priority, and you have never, not once, been late on a payment, or questioned a necessary expense. You have approved every recommendation we've made for her comfort and safety. Thank you, Susan. That means a lot. The reason I'm calling is this: I'm planning to post a copy of your most recent invoice online to clear my name. I just wanted to inform you as a courtesy. Your agency's name is on it, and I want to be transparent. Post it, she said without hesitation. It's a factual document for services rendered. We stand by our work and our billing. And Alex, she added, her voice firm, if anyone from your family or from the public decides to call us to verify anything, my staff is instructed to confirm that your mother's account is in perfect standing and that she receives our highest level of care. We can't discuss the financial details with them, of course, but we can and will confirm that she is being exceptionally well cared for. Let the document speak for itself. Her support was a quiet, firm pillar of strength. She was my professional ally, not roped into the drama but standing as a testament to the truth. Now I had all the pieces. The power of attorney, proving my authority, the itemized invoice, showing the massive cost of care, and the bank statement, showing where the money really came from. But simply posting them together felt cluttered. It needed to be cleaner, more powerful. I spent the next hour at my computer, not with accounting software but with a simple image editor. I took the scanned invoice from Senior Solutions. I used a digital red pen, the kind used for marking up documents, and I drew a neat, precise circle around the total amount due at the bottom. Then on the bank statement, I drew two more circles, one around the total of Mom's income, and one around the deposit from my personal account. Finally, I created a new single document. At the top, I placed the image of the invoice. Below it, I wrote a single clinical sentence: receipt for my mother's 24/7 in-home nursing care for the previous month. Underneath that, I placed the cropped image of the bank statement, showing just her income and my transfer. I added another sentence: source of funds, her pension, plus a supplement from my personal account. I looked at the composite image. It was cold, it was clinical, it was irrefutable. It told the entire story without a single emotional word. It didn't say, Chloe is a liar. It didn't say, I'm a good son. It just presented the facts in a way that led to only one possible conclusion. I had the weapon. Now all I had to do was wait for the perfect moment to pull the trigger. The wait was the hardest part. It felt like holding my breath underwater. Every fiber of my being wanted to post the documents immediately and end the torment. But my plan relied on timing. I needed the outrage against me to reach its absolute zenith. I needed Chloe to feel completely, utterly victorious. I needed her to get cocky, to push her narrative so far that the reversal would be even more shocking and humiliating. And she did not disappoint. Emboldened by the wave of public support and my silence, which she undoubtedly interpreted as guilt and cowardice, she doubled down. She gave an exclusive interview to a local blogger who ran a town gossip site. The article that came out was nauseating. It was titled "Local Woman's Heartbreak: My Fight to Save My Mother from My Brother's Greed." It featured more pictures of Chloe looking distraught, this time artfully dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief. She recounted a completely fabricated story of her trying to visit Mom and me blocking her at the door, screaming that she would never see her again. The comments on this new article were even more vitriolic. People were tagging the local police department, demanding an investigation. Someone started a GoFundMe for Chloe's legal fees to free her mother. It raised nearly $1,000 in a day. It was a circus, and she was the triumphant ringmaster, basking in the glow of the spotlights. I watched it all from my office, a silent observer. I felt a strange sense of detachment, like I was watching a movie about someone else. The Alexander Pierce being crucified online was a fictional character Chloe had created. He had nothing to do with me. I was just the man with the plan, the quiet accountant waiting for the fiscal quarter to end so he could present his report. My moment came on a Saturday night. Chloe, high on her newfound celebrity as the town martyr, decided to host a support for Mom event at her boutique. It was of course a thinly veiled attempt to drive sales, but she framed it as a fundraiser. She posted on the community page, inviting everyone to come for wine, cheese, and to stand in solidarity against elder abuse. That was it. That was the peak. The absolute summit of her hubris. While she was pouring cheap Chardonnay and soaking up the sympathy of a manipulated crowd, I would make my move. The contrast would be perfect. Her loud, self-serving spectacle against my quiet, factual takedown. Around 8 p.m., when I knew her event would be in full swing, I logged onto my own Facebook account for the first time in days. My profile was a ghost town. I rarely posted anything. My profile picture was a generic landscape photo. I had no digital footprint to speak of, which made what I was about to do even more impactful. I navigated to the community page, to the original post from Chloe that had started it all. The comment count was now over 1,000. It was a raging bonfire of misinformation. I didn't comment on her post. That would have buried my response in the noise. Instead, I started a new post on the community page. My own post. I didn't tag Chloe. I didn't write a long emotional preamble. I uploaded 2 images. The first was the scanned copy of the power of attorney. The full multi-page document, clear as day, with my mother's signature, my signature, and the lawyer's official seal visible. The second image was the one I had so carefully prepared. The composite showing the itemized invoice from the geriatric care agency, with the total cost circled, and the snippet of the bank statement below it, showing that every penny of Mom's pension, plus a $5,500 supplement from my own account, was used to pay for it. Above these 2 images, I wrote a single sentence. Just one. It had no emotion, no anger, no pleading. It was the most boring, factual, and devastating sentence I have ever written. In response to recent community discussions and concerns, here are the relevant documents regarding my mother's care and finances. That was it. I hit post. And then I closed my laptop. I didn't watch the comments. I didn't check for likes. I had planted the bomb. I knew it would do its work. I went into my living room, poured myself a glass of water, and turned on a documentary about deep-sea exploration. I needed to immerse myself in a world that was quiet, dark, and a million miles away from the drama I had just unleashed. The takeover wasn't loud. It was silent. It was the click of a button, and the calm, certain knowledge that the truth was now in play. For a full hour, I forced myself not to look. I watched anglerfish and giant squid float through the abyss on my television screen, focusing on the narrator's calm, dispassionate voice. But the silence in my house felt different now. It wasn't the heavy, oppressive silence of being isolated. It was the charged silence of a fuse burning. Finally, I couldn't stand it any longer. I walked back into my office, my heart thumping a slow, steady rhythm. I opened my laptop. The community Facebook page was already a different world. My post was at the top. It had no tearful emojis, no hearts. It was a sea of shocked and like reactions. But the explosive part was the comment section. It had started slowly. The first few comments were from Chloe's most ardent supporters, trying to keep her narrative alive. This doesn't prove anything. He probably forced her to sign it. One wrote, "How do we know these receipts are real? He's an accountant. He could have faked them." Another chimed in, "But they were trying to put out a chemical fire with a water pistol." My evidence wasn't emotional. It was documentary. It invited scrutiny, not sympathy. And people started scrutinizing. A woman who I knew was a paralegal at a local law firm was the first to land a critical blow. "I've seen hundreds of POAs," she commented. "That one is 100% legitimate. The notary stamp, the language, it's ironclad. He has full legal authority." Then came a man who owned a small contracting business. "I bill clients all the time. That invoice from Senior Solutions looks completely standard. And that's a reputable agency. My own father used them. They are not cheap, but they are the best." The tide began to turn, slowly at first, then with the force of a tsunami. The logic was inescapable. The power of attorney proved my authority was legal and granted by Mom. The invoice proved the cost of her care was immense. The bank statement proved I was personally footing a massive portion of the bill. The three pieces together created a fortress of truth that Chloe's emotional attacks couldn't breach. People started tagging Chloe directly in my post. Chloe, you need to explain this. Chloe, did you know your brother was paying this much out of his own pocket? Chloe, this looks really, really bad for you. Then came the exodus. I watched in real time as comments on Chloe's original post started to disappear. The angry faces next to her tearful selfie were quietly retracted. The shared posts vanished from people's timelines. The GoFundMe for her legal fees was suddenly taken down. The silence from her supporters wasn't just deafening, it was a digital evacuation. They were abandoning her sinking ship, trying to scrub away any evidence that they had been on board. The most telling moment came in a text message from my Aunt Carol, the one who had sent me the shame email. Her message now was just 3 words. I am so sorry. The power had shifted completely. I hadn't raised my voice. I hadn't called anyone a name. I had simply presented the facts. I had held up a mirror, and the reflection was so damning that everyone, including her own family, turned away from my sister in horror. Then my phone rang. It was Chloe. I let it ring 3 times, then I answered and said nothing. I just listened. I could hear her ragged breathing, the sound of a car engine in the background. She must have fled her own party. The triumphant ringmaster was now a fugitive. Alex, she said, her voice a strangled whisper. Take it down. Take the post down right now. No, I said calmly. You're ruining me, she shrieked, the whisper exploding into a full-blown panic. People are leaving my store. My phone is blowing up. Everyone thinks I'm some kind of monster. You have to take it down. I posted 2 legal documents and a receipt. Chloe, I said, my voice as flat as a ledger sheet. If the truth ruins you, that's not my problem. That's yours. You planned this, she accused, her voice cracking. You waited, you let everyone, you wanted to humiliate me. I didn't have to do anything, Chloe, I replied, the cold clarity still perfectly intact. You did all the work. You built the stage, you sold the tickets, and you put on the show. All I did was turn on the house lights. There was a sob, a raw, ugly sound of someone whose entire world had just crumbled. What am I supposed to do now? She wailed. I thought for a moment. I thought about the stress she had put me through, the public shame, the attack on my integrity. I thought about her trying to use our mother's illness as a prop in her pathetic drama. I could have twisted the knife. I could have told her she was getting what she deserved. But I didn't. I was done. I don't know, Chloe, I said, and for the first time there was a hint of something other than coldness in my voice. It was weariness. But from now on you'll do it without another penny from me and without using our mother's name. We're done. I hung up the phone. I walked over to my laptop and finally closed the Facebook tab. The battle was over. I had won. But it didn't feel like a victory. It just felt quiet. The storm had passed, and all that was left was the still, silent aftermath. The next few days were a blur of awkward apologies. Neighbors who had ducked behind hedges now gave me strained, overly friendly waves. The baker who had said I should be in jail left a box of muffins on my doorstep with a note that just said, I'm sorry. I received calls and texts from almost every family member who had condemned me. They were all variations on a theme. We should have known better. Chloe can be so convincing. We should have come to you first. I accepted their apologies with a polite, thank you. I appreciate that, but I didn't offer absolution. I didn't say, it's okay, because it wasn't. They hadn't been tricked by a master manipulator. They had simply chosen the easiest, most entertaining story. They had revealed that their loyalty was to drama, not to family or truth. That's a bell you can't unring. My relationship with many of them would never be the same. It wouldn't be hostile, but it would forever be held at arm's length, colored by the knowledge of how quickly they were willing to believe the worst of me. The true confrontation, if you could call it that, happened a week later. It wasn't a shouting match or a tearful reunion. It was something far quieter and more definitive. She came to my house. I saw her car pull up through my office window. She sat there for a full 10 minutes before getting out. She looked diminished. The vibrant, charismatic Chloe was gone. Her clothes, usually so fashionable, looked rumpled. Her face was pale and stripped of makeup. She looked tired and small. She knocked on the door, a weak, hesitant sound. I opened it and just stood there, blocking the entryway. I didn't invite her in. Alex, she began, her voice hoarse. Can we talk? I think we've said everything that needs to be said, Chloe. Her eyes filled with tears, but this time they looked real. They were the desperate tears of defeat, not the performative tears of manipulation. My store. I'm going to lose it. The landlord is terminating the lease. After everything that came out, no one will even walk past the front window. The GoFundMe people are demanding refunds. I'm ruined. I felt a flicker of something, a ghost of the brotherly instinct to protect her. But it died as quickly as it came. It was smothered by the memory of her face on that Facebook post. The calculated malice in her lies. That's a shame, I said. My voice was neutral. The voice I used with clients when their numbers didn't add up. It was the voice of objective fact, and for her it was colder than any insult. A shame, she repeated, her voice rising with a note of hysteria. That's all you can say. I'm your sister. You were my sister, I corrected her gently. When you used our mother's illness, her vulnerability, as a weapon to try and extort money from me, you made a choice. You chose to be something else, and now you have to live with that choice. I have to go. I have work to do. I started to close the door. Wait, she cried, putting a hand out as if to stop it. What about Mom? Am I not allowed to see her anymore? It was her last card, the only one she had left to play. For a moment, I saw the path she was trying to create, a long drawn-out family war over access to our mother, with her once again painting herself as the victim daughter, cruelly kept from her dying matriarch. I shut that door before she could even take a step down it. Mom is in the late stages of a degenerative neurological condition. Chloe, I said, my voice hardening into steel. Most days, she doesn't know my name, let alone yours. Your presence or absence means nothing to her, but your drama is toxic. Her environment needs to be calm and stable. So no, you are not to visit. You are not to call the nurses. You are not to involve her in any part of your life ever again. My primary responsibility, my only responsibility, is to her peace and her well-being, and you are a threat to that. The new reality, Chloe, is that your access is gone. Consider this my final invoice. I didn't wait for a reply. I closed the door, turned the deadbolt, and walked back to my office. The sound of her weeping on my porch faded as I sat down at my desk. It was over. The narrative she had so masterfully created had been dismantled, and the new reality was one of her own making. She wasn't the victim. She wasn't the hero. She was just a woman who had burned every bridge to keep herself warm, and was now left completely and utterly alone in the cold. In the end, it's funny what you learn about people. You think you know them. You think family is family. But when you push people to a point of profound betrayal, you learn a hard lesson. You learn that some people aren't interested in the truth. They're interested in the story, and they will always gravitate towards the one that is the most exciting, the most dramatic, the one that makes them feel something, even if that feeling is righteous, misplaced anger. Chloe's boutique closed a month later. The for lease sign in the window was a stark monument to her failure. I heard through the family grapevine that she ended up moving 2 towns over, taking a job as a receptionist. She had to sell her car and move into a tiny apartment. Her social circle, the one built on her charm and her parties, evaporated overnight. No one wants to be associated with someone so thoroughly and publicly disgraced. Her defeat was total. It was financial, it was social, and it was absolute. It was the karmic payoff for a lie told too loudly. And me, my life went back to being quiet. I continued my work. I continued managing my mother's care. Nothing changed, and yet everything had. The cloud of suspicion was gone, replaced by a sort of quiet respect in the community. People looked at me differently now, not as the quiet one, but as the steady one, the son who did the right thing, no matter the cost. I didn't seek their approval, but its quiet presence was a stark contrast to the noise that had preceded it. My most important moments were still the ones spent with Mom. I'd go to her house in the evenings, after her nurse Maria had settled her for the night. Most of the time, she'd be asleep. I'd just sit in the chair by her bed, listening to the quiet hum of the oxygen machine and the gentle rhythm of her breathing. She was peaceful, she was safe, she was well cared for. In the end, that was the only validation I ever needed. Her peace was my victory. So what's the moral of this story? I think it's this. In a world full of loud narratives and emotional manipulation, the most powerful weapon is often quiet, documented, and irrefutable truth. When someone tries to drag you into a mud wrestling match, don't get in the mud. Stand on the edge. Wait, let them exhaust themselves, and then present the facts without emotion, without anger. The truth doesn't need your rage to defend it. It has a weight all its own, and if you let it, it will bring down any house built on a foundation of lies. It might not be as satisfying as a screaming match in the moment, but the silence that follows when you are vindicated is a victory far more profound. I want to know what you think. Was my silent approach the right one, or would you have fought back immediately? Have you ever had to use cold, hard facts to shut down a lie? Let me know your stories and your thoughts in the comments below. And if you appreciate stories where the quiet ones finally get their justice, do me a solid and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. You never know when you'll need a reminder that the loudest voice doesn't always win the argument.